Welcome back to Keystones expedition. This is an expedition where I'm traveling through Africa. As some of you know, I've been to Majeti Reserve, which is in Malawi. I've been in the Serengeti, and now recently I've been camping in the Upemba National Park for the last 15 days, which has been amazing. But I'm finally sitting here with Lain, someone who I've connected with at least 2-3 years ago. So very excited to be here, actually at the Lusinga office in Upemba National Park, a place that I've been researching and exploring and talking about for a long time. So very excited for this discussion. Tina, could you possibly just say who you are and where you work?
Hi, so I'm Tina Lain. I'm the park manager from Upemba National Park, which is one of the oldest national parks that you have here in DRC. So I'm the park manager of Upemba, as well as the director of Forgotten Parks, which is the organization that has a PPP, which is a public-private partnership with the Wildlife Authority of Congo to manage, rehabilitate and develop this park. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, it's a big park.
It's huge.
Yeah. It's a big park. I mean, for people listening, I'm looking at a huge map behind Tina. Could you just give us some context of the size of this park?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a big landscape. So the park itself is more than 10,000 square kilometers. And then you got also the zone annex, which is like 3,000 square kilometers. So in total, when you take the zone annex and the park, you are around 13,700 square kilometers. And if you then take also the 2 hunting reserves that are actually, I mean, you don't really see them here, but I mean, you've got 1 hunting reserve here and another one here. So if you take all this landscape, we are talking about more than 17,000 square kilometers. And it is also very close to another park, which you see here, which is Congo National Park. So it is actually also a landscape which is connected. And we are in the middle of the Greater Katanga region, and the Greater Katanga region is probably one of the richest regions in the world in terms of minerals. And it's also here where you get, all the minerals for the energy transition that we are having. So the pressures are quite big. Yeah.
There we go. So, I mean, for people, I will be hopefully making a film on this place. Mm-hmm. I'll get the map up on there, as well as go look yourself. It's literally on Google Maps, and you can see the size of it. So 1.2 million hectares. And before I get into sort of more of like the complexity that exists in the park, the rangers, the scientists, which there's lots to dive into from an ecological perspective, mm-hmm. as well as a management perspective. And I think that relationship there's lots to dive into. Mm-hmm. But something I'd like to start on is just who you are, Tina, and mm-hmm. where do you come from, and how did you get here?
Long story. Long story short, so who am I? Probably, I'm a normal person. So I started, I didn't start in conservation. So my background is much more in peace building and international development. So I studied in the Netherlands different masters, but they brought me. Very very soon I arrived and started working in Congo, I was much more involved with child soldiers and peace building activities. And after working for a couple of years in this sector, I really decided that I didn't want it to be working around the consequences of conflict, but I really wanted to be working much more around the causes of conflict. And that's how it brought me to more the conservation sector, where we were dealing with natural resources and conflict around natural resources. And so I worked for more than 12 and a half years with the International Union of Conservation of Nature, which was a Dutch committee. And I worked a lot with actually civil society, local civil society working around protected areas and mainly around Virunga National Park. And there I met a lot of very interesting people, and one of these persons that I met was Rodrigue Katembo, which in this time he was one of the sector wardens of Virunga National Park. We worked very closely around different issues, and at a certain point he was relocated to Upemba National Park in 2015, and that's a little bit how I started to be closer to Upemba, because he was actually relocated here with nothing, so he had no funding for the park. He had no equipment for the rangers. They had no rations, to protect the last population of elephants that we have here. And I kind of, tried to support him to get at least going. And more, I realized that my former local partners in Virunga, already knew how to do, all the works that we did together, and that I was probably more needed here. And that's how at a certain point I did the switch from IUCN to Forgotten Parks, which was co-managing, let's say, Upemba National Park with the ICCN, which is the Congolese Wildlife Authority. So yes, I would say I started from civil society and went into park management, which was a big learning process for me because I never managed a park. Then you start doing it and you have to do it. And it's fail and error, but you really try to do your best. And I think that's what we have been trying to do, for the last 3 years. Yeah.
Amazing. And you have a son?
And I have a son, yeah.
And he is where?
He's in the Netherlands. I'm a very proud mama. I have a son, and he's not here, so that's certain. But he's now a little bit older, so he just turned 18, and that makes it easier for me. Maybe easier for him, but for me not so much. But it's no. So yeah, he's in the Netherlands and probably visiting Upemba in a couple of weeks if all goes well. Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, super exciting.
Yeah, and he's never been here.
Not in Upemba, no.
No, so to be able to live on the other side of the world, well, in the middle of Africa, in the Congo. Far from home, far from your family. I can't even begin to imagine what that's like. I've been living in the bush for 15 days and all I can think about is my girlfriend in Bristol and spending time with my brother. So it's, I could ask you way more questions around that and what drives you, what builds your passion around it. And really, what do you think are the biggest drivers for you that motivate you in being here?
I think it's probably, being able to help having things moving in the right direction. For me, rangers still a very big driver, being able to help them, to re-motivate them, to be a team together and building, this kind of group of people that all look in the same kind of direction yes, it's true that when you look at me, you say, okay, you have not been with your son, you're far away from your family, but for our rangers, that's the daily, it has always been like that. Many of our officers, their families are somewhere else. They don't see them for 1 year, 2 years. So I don't feel that I'm much different than they are. But yes, I think the driver is to see this park rise from forgottenness and come back to life, and it is very much also connected, to the rangers for me. It's really, seeing how rangers now are really believing, in the missions that we have. It wasn't like that always, At a certain point, I think when they had been, forgotten for so many years, they also, forgot that, that they were doing something, and that their mission was to protect this park. And I feel now that it's coming back, and it's with ups and downs. But yeah, I think we are a team, and that makes us stronger, to support everything. Yeah.
Mm. No, that's a great little segue into what's it all about. It really is a part of the map that most people in the world have not seen, and it comes with huge complexities. And I think let's go into the idea of security. Let's go into the need for security, and what this park actually just needs to be able to secure. What is secured now in this 1.2 million hectares, and what is 1.3?
Yeah.
And what is needing to be done? Where we at now, and how do we what is secured?
Yeah. So if you look at the 1.3 hectares, we probably are right now securing around 51% of the park, and this has been increasing, but it's also difficult because some of the areas of the park we also have settlements of armed groups, which makes it very difficult, also for ranger to access some of these areas. And certainly when you still have rangers, that are not properly trained or not properly equipped, you cannot be sending rangers in some of these areas when you don't have communication. When you don't have a way to evacuate them, if something happens. And unfortunately, we have had, several armed encounters in the last couple of years, and we also have lost rangers. So we are aiming at increasing by 50% the coverage of the park every year, but that's only possible when we are able to bring sufficient funding and sufficient, equipment and training for the rangers. So that's not something we haven't had a very proactive, strategy to get more terrain when we knew that our rangers were not ready yet. And certainly when we know that if we send them there, the probability that we will have armed encounters is very high. So we want, if we send them there, we want to be ready, to be able to protect them and be able also to regain this terrain, with the less risk possible. So that's a little bit where we are at right now, recruiting also new rangers, training them properly and also making, possible that we have all the conditions in place before we start, regaining all this land within the park. Yeah.
So there's a lot of management or the capacity building, for the development of rangers in the park to be able to secure this area.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit more about the threat and the complexity of that threat that exists around the park?
Yeah, so I would say, compared to other protected areas in DRC, I always felt, that we were kind of lucky because we didn't have, such a big armed group presence like you have in Virunga, where there it's very difficult, to operate. You have a big number of armed groups, but so yes, we do have armed groups. That's probably one of the biggest threats that we have right now, just because this armed group is trying to, regain strength, and that could be an issue in the future. Then we have some illegal mining sites on the boundaries of the park, which is also, if we're not able to stop that now, it's only going to increase. So we have to put in place, the systems where we know, it's not further than the boundary. Then it has been for many years. It has been bushmeat, but much more, for sustainable. It's not industrial. It's very much, coming from the communities. And that's why we're also, trying to bring alternatives for, livelihoods outside of the protected area. So I would say if you look at the drivers of the threats, the biggest ones is probably right now the presence of armed groups, then illegal mining, and then bushmeat. We don't have too much, and poaching, so we don't have too much deforestation. But again, that's going to change quite fast because we also have a big road that is being rehabilitated and that is crossing next to you can see it from here actually. The road is coming all this way around here. And it's going to Manono. And why Manono? Because there it's going to be the lithium capital. So that means that we already see, with the rehabilitation of the road, a lot of deforestation and charcoal making, and this is only going to increase. So we also have to anticipate to this kind of new threats that will be developing, in the next year or 2 years. So, but right now, if we really look at the integral part of the national park, our biggest threat is armed groups.
Okay, yeah. So the security and the development of that is now at play, and funding is coming through to help develop the security across the park.
Yeah.
I think what's been really nice this time that I've had here is working with Hankuzi Explorations and working with Chris Boyes, who's the expedition leader there, he's had huge experience with his brother as well, heading into various ecosystems to understand what exists in these ecosystems and kind of get a little bit closer to geology, everything, biodiversity, what actually exists in this park. So it's an interesting link, or just an important link that I think is being developed at this point. To actually notice what's here and to show rangers what they're actually protecting. I think that's been an interesting week, or a couple of weeks for me to see snakes come out of the grass that they've never seen before, and shrews and birds and all sorts of things. So yeah, would you be able to just kind of talk a little bit about the collaboration with Hankuzi and what sort of mission there is?
Yeah, so the collaboration started a couple of years ago because, we have, let's say, the direct threats to the landscape, which I already mentioned to you, but we still have a kind of bigger threat, around the landscape, which is oil exploration. So more than 80% of Upemba National Park is also covered by an oil block. And we know, that we need to have a kind of counter narrative, for the DRC government about what is the value of the park. Yes, we have, the unique, we have the only zebra population in the wild in DRC. We also have the only pure savanna elephants that we have in DRC. But this is not enough, to show a government that this landscape has really a value and should be, an alternative to oil exploration. So we started this discussion with Chris like 2 years ago. And the idea is really to be able, to show, okay, what is Upemba, not only in terms of wildlife and fauna or flora, but also in terms of water. So we want to be able to show the DRC government that, protecting Upemba is not only protecting, wildlife, it's also protecting ecosystem services that are crucial, for the development of all the region and also of the country. And yes, we're starting, very small, with inventories and surveys around, plants and small mammifers and so on. But the idea is, is to show, okay, it starts from here, but then it's also, about soil and about richness of soil. It's about water. It's about what it's bringing, to the communities, but also to the whole landscape. And it's just the beginning of a long process. This is not something that we are going to be able to do, in 1 year time. It's something that we need to invest, for the coming 3, 4, 5 years to really, build this kind of knowledge about what this landscape represents, in terms of value for many different kind of groups, and also here we try also to link it to the economical value of a landscape, because we feel that yes, a landscape has more values than economic. You have cultural, you have how you feel about it, the connections that you feel about it, but we are in a world where where we need also to show numbers. And certainly to a government that will need to have, to make a decision at a certain point. Do I go for an exploration, or do I go for, the other alternative? Yeah.
Yeah, I think water is a huge story here. We're at the plateau, 1,800 meters at the moment?
1,800, yeah, correct, yeah.
And down by the Fira Valley is down to 800.
Yeah,
so,
and then you get to the wetlands and to the lakes, so it's huge. And then you have more than 40 lakes, that are kind of interconnected, which also feed then the Congo River. So the water connection is not only, you don't have to see it only at Upemba landscape level, but you have to see it much broader, which the Lualaba, which is one of the rivers that takes, a lot of its sources from the lakes, is one of the main, water bodies of the Congo River. So if this is destroyed, I remember at a certain point of time when Virunga, was also threatened by your exploration. One of the connections that was made was like, okay, if you drill in Lake Edward, it could, contaminate as far as the Mediterranean. If you drill here, in this area, it could also contaminate, a lot of the water body as far as the Congo River. And I think that's something that we need to have in mind. We need to understand the bigger picture to be able to do, to take the right decisions at a certain point of time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a difficult. Ecosystem services and putting an economic value to an ecosystem service is still in its infancy.
Yeah.
From carbon and biodiversity offset credits, and we actually don't have time for that whole market to figure itself out until water is valued. I just wish people could really see the ecosystem value of water for communities across Africa. Beyond trying to create an economic value from it. I think it has to go that way. It has to go that way eventually, and I'm sure things are moving forward in developing that. Is some interesting prospects that are building for Upemba in sort of for the park that where people are starting to value.
Yes, so the same thing that I was saying about, becoming a team, from the park inside, with the ranger. I think that's also, our strategy with the outside. So we feel that we cannot protect Upemba if we are not, united and together. And that means that we really try to get these connections, at local level, national level, at international level. So with the communities, for fishermen, water is life. It's key. If we contaminate, Lake Upemba, that means that you will have the livelihoods of thousands of people that will be affected. So it will have an immediate direct impact on their survival. And the lakes are locations where conservation and development are together. So we have been developing several projects around sustainable fisheries in the lake with the communities. We have been also doing that with the support of the European Union in terms of agriculture, also around the landscape. And we are also, looking with, we are working also very close with academics at the University of Lubumbashi that have also been doing quite a lot of studies around environmental services and showing the value of environmental services around its landscapes. So for us, it's really trying to get all the different kind of pieces together and make a full story about what this landscape is telling us and how we can protect it in the long term. And that means that we need to be together. We need to be together with the fishermen. We need to be together with the communities, with the local chiefs, but also with the government and also looking at this kind of alternatives.
Mm. Yeah, I'm curious in asking, is there anything that you would want to communicate about Upemba that people don't know?
That we're here. I think many people don't know what Upemba is, but I think they need to understand that yes, we are in the Congo. Yes, it's not easy. Yes, we have a lot of threats, but it's not hopeless. Investing in nature protection in Congo is not hopeless. Investing in rangers here, even if they come from the local communities and they don't have all the skills, is not hopeless. So I think what I would like to say is that believing in Upemba is not hopeless. It's something that we can do, and we can save it. And it is, we are. I would say we are lucky, compared to many other landscapes, in the sense that this landscape is pretty intact. Everything is in place. Yes, we have a little bit less animals than many other protected areas because we had kind of industrial poaching during the Congo War, but the rest is here. So we just need to believe in it. We just need to work hard to be able to make it survive in the long term. But the biggest assets are already here. We have the rangers, we have the landscape, and now we need to push and make sure that it rises.
Yeah, I just having a look at some of the photos of the landscape. It's just, it's so hard. I hope people's imagination can picture the valleys and the massive waterfalls that exist here, the huge open plains. I can't even imagine what was on this landscape, those years ago. Is there any idea of what used to be here?
Yes, we have projections that we're talking about more than 100,000 elephants, roaming the full landscape, not only the park, but really, going from Zambia and coming back. And so you have great, corridors going on, but not only of that, it's probably, it was one of the landscape with the biggest diversity in terms of, different kind of antelopes and wildlife. And I heard, stories from people that were, living here in the 80s, 1780s and flying, around this landscape. And they were saying that, it was very similar to what you could see in the Serengeti, in terms of wildlife and movements and so on. So, for us, it's very difficult, to imagine that when we know that we have so small numbers, but these stories, we hear them, from very different kind of sources that were here. But it also shows, how fast, the destruction of such a place can go. It only took probably 10 to 20 years, to kill, most of the wildlife that you had here, but we are lucky that the landscape, is still intact, which means that we can reintroduce wildlife. We have many organizations and partners, that have been doing it, very successfully in other countries. So we can do it. We can bring back wildlife, but we cannot bring back habitat, and that's why is so crucial. That we are able, to safeguard this landscape. Yeah.
What's next?
What's next? Ooh, from the smallest things to the biggest, I think, next is continue what we have started, being able, to do that. Believe, that our team, is going to become stronger and stronger. And most, sometimes what's scary is knowing that you're taking off, but that by A or B or C you can go again down, and unfortunately, that's a reality that we see in many protected areas. For me, one of the biggest examples is Virunga. They are taking off and they go, again down because of conflict and because of war. And I think, we need to be prepared that could also happen here, But I think what's next is that we cannot give up, Whatever comes, we'll have, to endure, and we'll have to continue, moving forward, knowing that we might lose, we might lose ground, we might lose people, but we need to continue. Yeah.
I just had such an incredible experience with Rufal.
Mm-hmm.
He's the biodiversity monitoring expert of Upemba.
Yeah.
What an amazing human being.
Yeah. Someone
in building capacity of, some of these rangers and scientists. Please, could you talk about these legends?
Yeah. So, it's sometimes it's so difficult, to build the right team. But I feel that now we have people around us, from the ICCN that really believe in this dream, and Ruffin, Dr. Ruffin is one of these persons, and I think it's for us, for all of us, is a chance, that we have to take with our both hands, and Dr. Ruffin is certainly doing that. But what's also really important, I think, it's not only Dr. Ruffin. I think, you can have a Dr. Ruffin, but if you bring, people from the outside, like researchers, of experts that don't also, have the same vision of collaboration, of building, the capacity of rangers, building the capacity of the rest, Dr. Ruffin alone won't be able, to really develop itself. So I feel, that what Ankuzi has been doing is also very important, because he has brought researchers that are very open, for this kind of collaboration, and that are not only looking at, I'm doing my research and I'm getting, my data, but are really looking at, okay, but I'm sharing my experience, I'm sharing my knowledge with the others, and we are doing that together. And I think that's very valuable, but it's not always automatic. And I think that Dr. Ruffin also feels that, if he wouldn't feel, comfortable with the people that, came to support him, he wouldn't have the same kind of attitude. So I think that's also, a dynamic that we need to put in place. But we have Dr. Ruffin, for everything that has to do with biomonitoring, but we have also the same kind of people, in law enforcement and other departments. So yes, right now I feel that we have really started to have the right people in the right place, and that's maybe also what's allowing us now to progress faster, that we were able to do like 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah.
No, he's a legend. I had so much fun with him, laughing, and he said some of the most incredible things, and I think he actually made me cry one day.
That's good.
He did. He said the most beautiful, he looked at the sun,
yeah.
and he said in French something beautiful about how the sun gives him the spirit, and the sun is everything, and he then said it in English, and then he held my hand,
yeah.
and he just squeezed it, and that's what he said, and then we did our day, and I was like, what?
Good. I will have to spend more time with him in the field.
It was
nice.
It was phenomenal. I just, it's just being able to share the energy that I've felt from the people here. It gives me goosebumps. Just,
Good.
And I had such an amazing time just in the field, listening and learning from the land, the people, the culture. As a storyteller and Rewild Africa trying to produce a film, I think it's really important for us to empathize first, with what What is, this, storytelling, I think, is really about listening and really about understanding what is going on here. And I've been so grateful for this opportunity to be here. And what was it like being at the campsites and seeing all of us there? I mean, just to give...
I loved it. It was, the feeling was, again, what I really, really liked was to see the rangers being involved in conservation. Yes, our rangers are, doing patrols, but unfortunately, the last year and a half, it's been, actually more protecting, against attacks and against, all these kind of security issues, and that's that takes us away, from why we are really here. So seeing the interaction, between the rangers and people like Alan, flying around for butterflies, and for them, to see that okay, the work that we are doing is also that, going back to probably what it should have been. I think that was for me, super nice to see. And yeah, so and then also being in the field is where you get your energy. For me, I get when I've not been spending enough time with the rangers really in the field. That's when I feel that my energy is really going down. And having these kind of moments where you go back to what it really matters, looking at a butterfly or looking at a shrew and understanding what it is and how everything is interconnected, that gives you back energy for what's coming, and that's super valuable.
Yeah, I think there's so many, I can't even think of the word now, underlying connections or things that happen when you're in the field and you're sitting around a fire and you chatting about things. You've got two different languages, French and English, two different ways of seeing the world, and there's so much little innovation that's happening that Upemba needs, that I could feel while I was out in the field. I mean, just the simple idea that, I think it's De Vito, who came here in the 40s and did the scientific development of the taxonomy of this region. This region has been pretty much identified, 95, probably, 95%. We only came in the dry season, We're running around looking for butterflies, putting up traps with Chad, doing all of that in the dry season. I mean, I couldn't believe how hard these scientists were working. It was phenomenal to watch. And there's still so much opportunity. I mean, they were finding
new things, new species. Yeah.
And then not only just finding those new species, seeing the ecological link that they have with the landscape. I think what De Vito did in those days was incredible for knowing what's here. But I think where humanity has grown is seeing how things are as an ecosystem or as an ecology. So I think that, Chris and their team are really starting to build that sort of knowledge. And I really hope the world gets to engage with that more. Is there more scientific explorations?
Yeah, I think this is just the beginning. So the idea is really to have, every year at least 2 missions during the dry season and the rainy season, and really start, rediscovering everything that's here. And also start bringing, one of the things that we also discussed with Chris is that we also want to break this divide between, the English and French academic world, and that we really want to try to bring them together. So I hope that for the next mission we will also have, some of the professors, from the more kind of French-speaking, academia come also and start interacting, also with the English-speaking, and because like I said, it's teamwork, and I think if we join forces, it will make it only stronger. So yes, the idea is really to be able to do that, but one of the preconditions is to have the security. So we started small in an area of the plateau where we knew we could control, and we didn't have too many risks. But we hope, to be able to progress more and more towards the Lufira Valley and river. But that means that at the same time, we also need, to progress in terms of security. Because if we're not able to bring the security there, that means that we cannot bring, researchers to do anything. Yeah.
Is Africa Parks involved at all? I heard that they're like incubating. There's an incubation project.
Yeah, so we are. So we signed a memorandum of agreement with African Parks end of last year, and this has been giving us a lot of support in terms of putting, the systems in place. So we have been working a lot together on, having every, management tool already in place, like a business plan, SOPs, and really building, on their experience for the last 20 years. And that's, I think this kind of investment is, even more valuable than receiving money, because it puts you, it allows you actually, to function, properly and to control and structure things much better. Before we were a little bit on our own, trying to find the wheel when the wheel is already, known. So that's been, super. Yeah, big progress for us, and it also allows us, to engage better, with other, funders, other actors, and have, and even like. Right now, we are also planning to do the coloring of the elephants, the first coloring of the elephants of Upemba, and having, their support, knowing, that they know these people that can also come and help us, spot the elephants from an airplane, which our rangers are not used to do. It's like we have to learn everything from scratch. We had no air wing functional in this park for more than 20 years. So we can put a ranger, in an airplane, but if he has not been used to, be in an airplane and spot elephants from the air, it's really going to take a lot of time. So having, this kind of backstopping, having this experience that we can feed in and build, our capacity faster, because we need to, we cannot wait, 20 years. If we can have a spring of 10 years, to go ahead, that's actually what we are trying to do with African Parks, and it's been very valuable. But the same with Virunga. Virunga has also been supportive, and really helping us in and out of different things. Also, in the most difficult times that we had. So yes, it's bringing all this kind of people together and moving faster forward. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an incredible sort of collaboration effort, and I really hope that this podcast or video, or whatever I produce, can tell a little bit more of Upemba's story. I guess it's everyone's story at the end of the day. These wildernesses is what is protecting the well-being of everyone's children of the future, not just the children of the Congo. Is there anywhere that I can kind of point people towards in terms of support? Where could they learn more about Upemba, on a website or something? Where?
Yeah. So we have social media. And we also have a new website which is upemba.org, and there you can find all the information, and we are building it, and we hope to come more and more with more images actually of the park, and having also this mission of scientific with Chris, which takes amazing pictures. It's really going to help us bring Upemba to a broader public. So I would say certainly the website, and hopefully with Rewild within a couple of months, probably also a documentary about the park, which also will tell the story of the rangers and of the works that we have been doing here. Yeah.
I mean, I can say from Rewild Africa's perspective, we are so invested in telling the story. I think we've got some of the funding to come and do the elephant monitoring process, but we still wanting to tell the story more, and I think it's going to need funding over time. Documentaries aren't like you're just listening and learning about the story and getting people invested in the story. So from that perspective, that's awesome, and I think people can get in touch with Chris to be able to engage more with funding for Hankuzi, I think, to get him out here.
Yeah.
And I mean yourself, they can just get in touch with
With us.
with
With us.
Upemba. But I mean, is there anything else that you would want to share or kind of talk about?
No, I mean, I think for us it's already, a very big opportunity to have people like you, of people like Chris, starting to believe in what we're doing here. And I think that's the beginning. And probably the beginning is always the hardest. So we are grateful, to have this kind of support coming more and more from different sides. And hopefully, we will be able to make it. Yeah.
No, I'm sure we will. It's stronger together. So, yeah, thanks so much. If anyone who managed to make it all the way to the end of this podcast, I appreciate you listening. I'm doing this all on my own self-finance as I travel through Africa with Keystones. The way I'm financing it is people are sponsoring, organizations sponsoring a podcast or a film. And that's how I'm financing it. No one's financed yet. Well, actually, one person has financed a podcast, so it's financing $5,000 per podcast and $15,000 per film. So please get in touch with me if you think what I'm trying to do is useful and, I don't know, good for the world. Other than that, that's it. Thank you, Tina.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Cheers for now.